friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to, for one, do an update on the Gamma Seal food storage buckets I've been getting, as well as talk about the differences between your standard snap-on lid like this and the Gamma Seal lid like this. What are the benefits and drawbacks to either? So we'll be talking about that, but first let's talk about the update. Now, a few months ago, I think it was, I did a video on these newer buckets that I've been buying, and to be honest, it's the first time I've actually purchased Gamma Seal lid buckets, and I do really like them. But in that video, which I'll go ahead and link to down below, I was putting the food directly into the buckets. I wanted to try that instead of using Mylar bags, because even though I like Mylar bags for some things, I just don't like always having to use them, and they do wear out. So even though you can recycle them, after a while they can get pretty beat up and start getting holes and not be near as good as they were. However, because of the way we're storing some of these buckets, I changed my mind and decided to go ahead and get some more Mylar bags to use in these. So you have to make sure you get the 5-gallon size of Mylar bags. Now, this bucket of the 3 I have up here is the only one that actually has something in it. And I brought this one in because it's not actually full all the way. It's one I've only started to fill. So you can see in here, I have a Mylar bag. This is the hard white wheat grains, which are my favorite for using for breads, anything I'm going to grind into flour. So you can see in there, I still have plenty of room. This is a 5-gallon bucket. I currently have 25 pounds of wheat grains in here, and I can fit at least another 10 pounds, I think, in there. I think it's about another 10 pounds because the rice is about the same. Because I know I can put almost 1.5 25-pound bags into the Mylar bag inside this type of bucket. You know, I haven't bothered sealing this up because I'm going to be adding some more grains to it real soon, as I'm waiting for my next order to come in. Screw this on here, and then after I get the bag in here and bucket topped off, this will go to our off-site location where we're storing our food for long term. So that's one of the things, is anything I'm wanting to put for very long term, I want to make sure in that case I am going back to using the Mylar bags. I'm still not using oxygen absorbers in them because you can actually press those bags down and press out a lot of that air. As long as you get a good seal on your Mylar bag, these ones are the Ziploc ones, which means they're more expensive, but that makes them easier to use and reuse. And as long as you make sure that seal, that Ziploc seal, is totally done up tight, or you're doing the flat iron method like I showed in another video, and then sealing it that way and making sure there's no air leaks at all, that will be good for long-term storage. You do not have to add oxygen absorbers or even use the CO2 method unless that's something you want to take as an extra precaution. I just don't see the need to bother with that. As long as everything is well sealed, that should prevent degradation, that should prevent moisture, and also prevent weevils, even if they do end up being weevil eggs in there. These ones I did freeze the grains in here previously. I'm doing that from now on just because I've had a couple of issues with weevils, even though I didn't for years and years. As long as there's no way oxygen can get into those grains, your weevils, even if they do end up hatching at some point and there's some in there, they're not going to live for long because they need oxygen just like we do to survive. So keeping it deprived of oxygen, this is another reason why if you're going to vacuum seal or oven can any of your grains, there's no need to add an oxygen absorber because you're already sealing that up or taking out most of the oxygen anyway. And even if anything was alive in there, that oxygen, there's not going to be enough to keep it alive for long. Things like that just can't survive in that kind of environment. So anyway, that's the update on that. So I've decided to go back to doing that. Now, that's not necessary for buckets such as this little recycled coconut oil bucket that I use for storing oats in here in the kitchen. So it's not just oats. I use these buckets for storing rice, flour, anything like that I'm working through here in the kitchen. And then I use bigger buckets in the pantries. Some of the grains are in the original bags because I'm working right through them. Some of them are stored in Mylar. It just depends on the length of time I plan on storing them if I'm not going to work right through them. Now, let's talk about the differences between the two types of lids. They both have their benefits. Now, the lids like this, I didn't want to bring in a full-size bucket, but like that, but since these are handy, the lids like these, they're the kind that you hammer them on. Most of them will come with a pull-off kind of tab that you can't put back on there, but you can reseal these easily enough on any of these recycled buckets, whether they be frosting buckets that you get for free from your local bakery or whatever. You can just take a rubber mallet and hammer that on there. And these are actually, these kind of lids are great for long-term storage. In fact, we kind of think they seal a little bit better. But you do want to make sure, unlike this, you'll see it's raised up on one edge. Some of these buckets I'm getting into daily and some several times a week. And so I don't want to have to try to pry this off all the time. I can pretty easily, as long as I only have two sides, I can pretty easily, even with my weak hands, pull that lid off of there. So then when I go to put it away, I just do this. That's it. I don't pound down all four sides like that because that just makes it too hard for me to get off when I'm needing to just get in there, put it away, then tomorrow I'll get it right back again. Because remember, I'm working through this. However, if this was a bucket that I was putting into long-term storage, I would pound down all the sides and make sure it was very well sealed. Now I do have, up until getting these buckets, and before we started using those really big ones that I think are 10-gallon buckets that have their own different type of lid that screws off and have very good seals, these have worked really great for me for long-term storage. Again, you know, you can do the same method with the Mylar bags and just make sure it's pounded down tightly. As long as it's something you're not needing to get into daily, that's something you're thinking 5, 10, 25 years down the road, then buckets like that with these kind of lids, that's going to be the cheapest way to go. Those are great for long-term storage. After you working with these for a bit, I almost think they're maybe a little bit better for sealing. However, the Gamma Seal lids, though they are far more expensive, do have their benefits. Okay, you can see I haven't used this one yet. It still has the label on the inside. They do inside here. They have a rubber seal right here. That seal is going to sit right on the top rim here of this bucket. Then the other thing I did double check is on this part here. This is the part that you hammer onto your bucket. Again, you'll want to use a rubber mallet if you got to hammer it on there, or if you're heavy enough where you can just use your knees and go around the outside and push it down on there. That's one way to do it, because this does fit on here very snugly. And then this right here, this is the part that screws in there. There's a rubber seal right here too. So that should prevent, as long as it's on there nice and tight, that should prevent any kind of oxygen exposure. However, the reason I changed my mind on the Mylar bag thing was one thing I found out about the Gamma lids is that they can loosen up a little bit when they get jostled around. So moving them from one place to another, I found that the lids actually still had a looseness, even though I knew I put them on tight. So what Patrick is doing with those is taking a rubber mallet and just pounding them on there tight, and then you can loosen them up the same way. So the benefit of these is if it's a grain that maybe you're just storing in a pantry that's close by, and it's something you're going to be getting into all the time, well, it's so much easier to just unscrew that lid and then put it back on again. And these things are big enough that it makes it easy to grab hold of and open up. Unlike some of the bigger 10-gallon buckets we have that have a button you got to push and then you unscrew it, that's helps lock that lid into place. Those ones are a little bit harder, especially if you're arthritic. That could be very problematic trying to get those lids off. So those who have weaker hands or arms or even arthritis of any kind, this kind is going to be much easier to get in and out of. So then the other benefit to buckets like this is that putting this top on here actually does increase the interior volume of the bucket, so you can actually store more. It's not a ton more, but it can make a significant difference, especially if you're talking about heavier weight things like popcorn and grains. So a bucket like this, when it comes to, as I said before, rice and wheat grains, I would say can store about 35 pounds. Now, when you're talking popcorn's heavier. I think I believe I can put 50 pounds of popcorn in a 5-gallon bucket with the Gamma lid on there. But oats are different. The oats, I can only put about 25 pounds tops into one of these buckets because they take up, this is rolled oats. This isn't oat groats. I've never bought oat groats, so I don't know if they'd be more similar to wheat grains and how they'd store, but rolled oats definitely take up a lot more room than your wheat berries and your rice. Now, here's a picture that I took of 4 different buckets I have back there in our pantry. And the 2 on the left you'll see have the standard, they're old buckets. I've been putting food storage in those for years and years. And they have the lid like this that you have to basically hammer on there. And you see those 2 are stacked up on top of each other. And then right next to that I have 2 buckets like this, my newer ones, and those are stacked up on top of each other. Now both buckets, all those buckets are 5-gallon buckets, but look how much taller the 2 blue buckets are standing on top of each other. That shows you right there that there really is more volume in those buckets. They actually hold a little bit more because just putting that on there alone it just adds a little bit more to it, and it can be surprising how much more you can fit in there. So that is one of the benefits of the Gamma lid there. So you just got to weigh it out. If it's worth the cost to you to have this? It's going to depend on how you're planning on storing it and for how long. Is it a bucket that you're thinking of getting into maybe once a day, once a week, once a month? Or is it something you're wanting to store for years down the road and not have to worry about getting into it at all? So then you can weigh out your cost comparison there. Because then the great thing about buckets like this, food grade buckets even, you can find lots of them for free or really cheap, even with the lids like this, just like I recycle all these coconut oil buckets for using to store things in here, or even storing things that I don't need as much of. There's a lot of ways you can save money on your buckets and not have to run out and buy the ones like I've got here. Now, if you're interested in these, I love these buckets. I've bought 3 sets so far over the past year because I'm so happy with them. And I love the fact that they come in the 5 different colors. You can buy these ones either in a set of 5 or a set of 10. You get a set of 5, you get 1 of each color. You get the set of 10, you get 2 of each color. So it's pretty simple. They work out to be $18 a piece, and I got free shipping on them. When I did my original video, but not long after that video came out, the buckets were no longer available. But they're available again, and for the same price I was paying for them months ago. And so I'll put that link down below for those of you who are interested. But other places, especially if you're trying to avoid Amazon, you can look at, and just remember, that's our affiliate link, and anything you buy through our affiliate link does help support us a little bit. We get a little bit of commission from any sales, but I'm also all about you saving money. So if you can find better deals and also help support some local businesses, don't forget to look in places like eBay, Etsy, and Craigslist, and your Facebook Market. And I know some people had mentioned other places so that you can buy things like that, because a lot of times people are just trying to unload stuff like that. They get all kinds of buckets and they have too much, or stores. So don't forget to check out your local stores, especially bakeries, anything that has to buy food items in bulk. Then you know you're going to get a food grade bucket, and also you can often get it for free, or they might only charge you a couple dollars for the whole thing with the lid. So that's probably going to be your best deal right there to look at first. And rather than having to pay $18 a bucket. So it's $18 lid and all. This kind of lid is actually what makes the bucket so expensive. All right, so don't forget to check out the links down below, and I hope this kind of helped give you some ideas, because I did have that question about what's the difference of the Gamma lid and then the regular lid that just comes with the buckets when you get them like that. And they're both good lids. It just depends on how you're going to use them. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.